What's good? It's the Wild Shadow Norway, and welcome to another week of fun. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to do another flashback to one of my albums. I've done the first two, Renegades and Untouchables, so I'm moving on to my third album, Victory, today, that was released on October 26th in 2009. What you see here is the hard copies, the CD version that was available for sale, and yeah, it's out of print now. And the vinyl version, which is the only copy in the world, just one off I pressed for myself. We can take a look at that one first. On the other side, it's not all the songs, but it's yeah, it's the best songs from the album. The ones that I felt were the best songs. Let me see if I can pull it out, show you the labels inside there. And yep, we got the A-side label here, the same as the front cover. And we got a little flip of the front cover on the flip side right here. So I'm gonna put my phone down again, man, and just put it carefully back into the sleeve before I start talking about this album in detail. I'm the White Shadow Norway, and this is a flashback to my third album called Victory. This was, I would say, the turning point for me. Renegades and Untouchable, they did well, in the hip hop underground and the hip hop scenes worldwide. And a lot of people compared my beats and my production to Dieter Premier and Pete Rock, which is good because I mean they're regarded the two best hip hop producers of all time. So I took that as mad props, But at the same time, I wanted to develop my own style. I didn't really want to sound like anybody else, so I was experimenting with different types of styles of beats at home and everything. And I tried to capitalize a little more on the style I did on tracks like the Hate Me remix featuring Slain and Check featuring Destroy and Great Scott of the Arsonists from my Back to the True School EP, like that more orchestral, hard-hitting, heavy, epic soundtrack metal type of sound. So that's what I kept working on. At the same time, the Snow Goons were doing the same thing. So we came out kind of on the same tip in a way, but also very different. I would say I don't really think we sound that much like each other, but we were both on that tip around this time there, 2009. So that resulted in the third album. After my second album, Untouchable, I wasn't going to do any more albums again. I thought, well, this is it. This now it's over. But I continued hooking up with dope MCs and hooking deals up with various labels and friends and everything. And I continued making beats. And now I had a new style too. This is around the time that I switched from using only the SP1200 sampler to FL Studio. Actually, I got into digital beat making, and I'm happy I did. I was before that I was like a purist, I was like, nah, you gotta have hardware, you gotta use the classic samplers like the SP or the MPC or those samplers. But nah, you don't, man. I mean, time moves on and technology gets better, right? So I pretty much flipped my whole studio and shelved all of my hardware in favor of software around the time, and I'm happy I did because that really was instrumental in the start of the rest of my album series. Starting with this one then. Released October 26th, like I said, in 2009. And what we got on the back here, I got my Uncut Productions logo, my label. I got a Zulu Nation logo too. I was a Zulu member from 1992 until, I guess, around this time, maybe a little longer. Anyway, let's get into the album here. The opening banger, and it's definitely a banger with a long intro with some sampled Winnie Pass from Jedi Mind Tricks vocals and everything. And it's got the GOAT, featuring the greatest rapper of all time, in my opinion, Grandmaster Melly Mel. From back in the day in the Bronx, of course, the Furious Five, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, and Melly Mel's my favorite MC. So the way I hooked that up was that Hot Shit Records in Germany, I did some work for them for one of Melee Sparks albums, and part of the payment was that I got to remix some verses they had in the archives by Melly Mel. So cool. Now I had a Melly Mel feature on my album, although in remixed form, but still, you know. So that really got me hyped to make this album and to make it as dope as possible. And yeah, it's a really, really raw, hard banger. The rap game by Melly Mel there, and the dialogue sampled from Divine Fire by Jedi Mind Tricks, the movie that they put out on DVD back in the day, where in the past talks about how, you know, the original true school, the oldest school of hip hop artists didn't get the props they deserved, and you know, didn't get paid what they were owed either. So and they kind of been forgotten about. I mean, like Grandmaster Flash and Melly Mel, Cold Crush Brothers, Fantastic Five, and all those crews who actually started hip hop, they kind of got forgotten about in the early 2Ks. Like everyone looked at like the next generation of hip hop, like Eric B and Rakim and the Juice Crew and BDP and Public Enemy and all of them, as like the old school. But I mean, there was a even older school before them. So Melly Mel, that's your favorite rapper's favorite rapper's favorite rapper, and so on. So, but anyway, perfect hardcore orchestral epic type of opening banger there, featuring Melly Mel, called The Rap Game. Next one up, Dark Side, featuring Seven. Seven was a friend of Superstition, so they're both from North Carolina. So I hooked up with Seven. I did some scratching and a beat, I think, for one of his albums, and he hit me up with verses in return that were really dope. On also an orchestral cinematic type banger there on Dark Side. So continuing hardcore and straight raw from the rap game to Dark Side there. More straight boom bap on the third song here. That was actually made on the SP1200 as well, and it's more of your basic Dita Premier type boom bap track. I was kind of between getting my own sound, my own style, and the old styles I did that was really inspired by the classic 90s boom bap type of hip hop. And that third song there is in that category. It's The Crew again, featuring Sadat X and my people from Milwaukee, King Hell Bastard. That also featured Clark Bent from the Peaceman and Strange Brew Crew. And that also came out on vinyl. They put out an EP called Remember the Name EP that did well in the hip hop underground in the States as well. That also has that song on it. It's The Crew again, featuring King L Bastard and Sadat X. Next up, track called Before, featuring Pace One, Block McLeod, and Awkward. Awkward's the man who hooked that up. He's like an Arsonist affiliate of sorts, and he got at me through Great Scott from the Arsonists, and because he had this album project in the works, Awkward, where he wanted to gather hip hop artists from like all over the world. And I'm not just talking about Europe and the USA. I'm talking about the Far East, the Middle East, wherever, you know, he could get artists from. And that album came together lovely, and it's a dope album. But this is one of the songs I got in return for doing work on that album, called Before. That's also an orchestral epic banger, and it's also the last beat I made on the SP1200, the very last beat I made on that machine. Actually, I'm gonna see if I find a disc sometime and make a little video out of that. Next up, I slowed it down with Gotta Do, featuring Boston Strangler. That was a leftover track from the deal I did for the Untouchable album with Commonwealth Records in Boston, where I could use like their entire a cappella archives for whatever I wanted in return for doing a remix album for them. So that's a little different on this one. The beat is made on the SP1200 as well, and it's kind of got like backwards type of drums, like Paul Revere in a way, but in a more laid-back cinematic style there. Very different from the rest of the album, and yeah, it's a good one. Next up, the title track, Victory, featuring Strickland from EMC and Grindhouse Gang and Craig G. I'm going to talk about Grindhouse Gang a little later, so I'll save that one. But Craig G is, of course, the legendary MC from the Juice Crew. and one of my favorite MCs of all time, one of the best period of all time. I mean, you wouldn't want to battle that guy back in the day, and you wouldn't want to do it now either. And but he was dope on record too. Of course, we got plenty hip hop classics like the Drop in Science with Molly Mall and all the Cold Chill and record stuff. And he had a deal on Atlantic Records and put out records there. But he started actually putting out records on Pop Art Records in Philly, like a small independent Philadelphia hip hop label. Well, they released club records too, like from the classic funk band Instant Funk and everything too, and some electro and stuff like that. But mainly hip hop. They had like Roxanne Shante, the early Roxanne Shante and Bismarck Key 12s that they did together. Those 12-inch singles came out on Pop Art, and so did Steady B's early 12-inch singles, and so on. And Craig G released his debut 12-inch single called Transformers, that was, of course, inspired by the Transformers cartoons on Pop Art Records as well when he was just 12 years old. So, he's been in the game since he was a kid. And, is one of the dopest MCs out there. Y'all know, man, Craig G. So, perfect featured artists for the banging title track here. That's also on the orchestral cinematic tip. I was getting into that a lot. It's a mix of that and the earlier boom bap styles I did, but yeah, the heaviest hitting bangers on this is in the cinematic orchestral epic style. Next up, it's a little bugged out track there on the comedy tip on some sexually perverted type shit, but it's it's all done in fun, man. It's you have to be able to take some shit to listen to that one. If you can't handle the whole weight, then steer clear. Anyway, that's featuring my people from Milwaukee, the Peace the Man, and it was actually a remix. It was one of the older songs they did, so but I had a perfect beat for a remix for it, so I remixed it and got to include it on this album. Next up, perhaps most people's favorite track of the album, and definitely the hardest hitting banger, featuring Creative Juice's crew from New York, and that was Verbal Assault, and that's a track where I went all out with the epic orchestral banger type beat there. Definitely hardcore, and it holds up well in that way even nowadays in 2023. Slowed it down for the next song, track 9 on this album, featuring my man Infinito 2017 from Chicago, and it was Classic Regulations. And doing that track together with him, it's more on a laid-back jazzy type of hip-hop kind of beat and flow, and I made that beat with the SP1200 as well. Really playful bass line and stuff like that. I usually like to keep my bass lines just real deep and just to drive a beat, so I don't really play around that much with it, but I got some beats where I do that too, and that fit well with like a laid-back jazzy piano sample and some tight drums with some hand claps, and then some deep bass that I just messed around with and played on the pads on the SP1200. Oh, my man Infinito 2017, bringing in great quality hip hop on the mic as always, and that song resulted in us doing a full album together called Classic Regulations. Actually, that's a real rare gem. I can talk about that at some later time, but yeah, really nice jazzy hip hop boom bap album there from Infinito 2000 and myself, where we call ourselves Next Universe, and the name of the album was Classic Regulations, and that's the title track featured on Victory here. Next up, Straight Bars, your basic boom bap type banger, more in the 90s style of beat, but yeah, I made it with FL, so it's got a bit of a cleaner sound and nicer sound overall, that one. Featuring Nato Caliph and Main Flow, and also Mark Dees and Powder from the Grindhouse Gang that was featured on the title track on this. As most of y'all know, I've done a lot of work with Mark Dees. That's my main man from back in that time there. We did albums together. I produced his sophomore album, The Oracle, among other things, and we collabed on a lot of stuff. And he's still doing the damn thing. He's not putting out music as often nowadays, but Yeah, I think he's got an Oracle 3 in the making that will be released in a while or something. But anyway, this one got everyone kicking it hardcore. Powder also from Grindhouse Gang, really dope on the mic and an excellent beat maker as well. Next song up, You Don't Want, featuring Rip Shop. That's more on a mix of a hardcore and a club hip hop type thing. And it was also one of the leftovers from my deal with Commonwealth Records in Boston. Back to the Grindhouse Gang from Augusta, Georgia. By the way, my man Mark Dees there. His dad used to be in a band with James Brown, or James Brown produced an album for his band that was actually going to come out on Polydor Records in 1973. That was the funkiest year of the Godfather of Soul himself, James Brown, but it was never released. I can only hope that album gets released one day because I really like to hear it, and I bet there's some gems to sample from that album. But anyway, his son there, Mark Dees, and the crew in Grindhouse Gang, that's Mark Dees and Powder and Dr. Ill back then. And they were ready for war, man. We were ready for war. We were going to take over some shit, and we did later when we dropped the Oracle and a lot of other gems back then in the around 2010, 11, around that time. So another boom bap hip hop banger there on track 12, Ready for War. Next up, back with my man from Chicago, Infinito 2017, aka Marcellus Lovelace, an excellent artist too, by the way, as well as an MC, on the song Rap Thugs, on like a jazzy, laid-back boom bap type beat. That's actually my most popular beat in its instrumental version, besides Narrow Grave that I did for AOTP Army of the Pharaohs. God knows how much it's been streamed by now, Rap Thugs, but it's one of those kind of unexpected tracks that became really, really big, and it's a dope one too. Next up, to finish the album off, is another orchestral cinematic banger called Wild Wild East, so of course a flip on the Wild Wild West, featuring my man Awkward from New York again, and Block McLeod again, and Castro. So yeah, really nice hardcore track there to end the album before I finished it off with the instrumental, The End, which is kind of more laid back and it's an SP1200 beat as well, with like a complex arrangement and stuff like that I like to finish some of my albums with. So that's it, my friends. Came out in October 26th to be exact, 2009, my third album, Victory, and the one I was definitely the most happy with at the time. Artwork here by my man Wolf from Belgium as well. Excellent artwork on my early albums by my man Wolf there. I'm the White Shadow Norway, and I hope you enjoyed this flashback to my third album. There will be more, every now and then. I'm not going to drop these day after day after day because it'll just get boring like that. But yeah, man. Next album up will be Destiny. Until then, I'm gonna post some other shit. I'm sure you know how I do on social media, man. But y'all have a good one out there, and we'll talk soon. Okay? Peace.